we'd like to go ahead and get started. My name is Stephen Hansen. I'm the CEO of the Utah Local Governments Trust. And on behalf of the trust and all of us here, we welcome you to this Labor Commission Lunch Series. We've got a great presentation for you today. We have Floyd Johnson, who is the Division Director of UOSH, who was newly appointed over there in 2022. And he's going to share his vision for the division and talk to us about the importance of UOSH for our own organizations. I will say he's got a great background. He's lived in Hawaii, Florida, Utah, other places, Illinois, has a master's degree from the University of Utah, well-educated, well-experienced, 17 years in the construction industry as well, and just brings an enormous amount of expertise in OSHA and also industrial commission, or excuse me, in the industrial hygiene. He has a master's degree from the University of Utah on that. I also want to just say that I want to give a special shout out to Jason and Mike in the back, who really are our loss prevention experts. And I hope that you are taking advantage of their expertise, their resources. They are here to help our members. And we welcome everyone online as well. But we have 570 members across the state of Utah. And we have lots and lots of different opportunities, programs that hopefully you're taking advantage of and utilizing to help us all reduce losses and do the best we can to keep people safe. And so anyway, a big shout out to Mike and Jason, and want to express appreciation for their expertise and invite you to call on them as you do, but be sure to do that anytime. Thank you for your membership in the trust. We appreciate what we do together. We know we can do more together than any one of us can do on our own. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Floyd. Thank you, Floyd.
Did you say there was 570 members? Wow. That's almost as much as many people as at my family reunion last time. Full disclosure, Polynesian. My mom is the youngest, and she's a twin of 18 kids. So you can imagine how many kids that's turned into after 50 years. We literally needed to use a drone to take our family picture at our last family reunion, and we were all separated into different family tribes, I guess is the best way to put it. Anyway, love being in Utah. I was just telling the guys here that this is my home until it's not. I tend to enjoy the warm weather the older I get, so I might end up back in one of those tropical places when I'm done here. But let's go ahead and just get started in this presentation here. Obviously, UOSH, I've seen some familiar faces already, but our mission is to help ensure a safe and healthy workplace for everyone in the state of Utah. Can we advance the slide? So there's a little bit of we have a little technical difficulty at this point. I don't have a clicker, so I'm going to be back and forth with them. I don't want to keep this or make this seem too formal. So let's just call this like 40 minutes with Floyd. If you guys have questions, whatever, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm happy to answer or try to find an answer for you eventually. So a little bit about myself. Steve, right? Gave a great introduction. Yeah, I was in construction for a long. I started in footings and foundations, and my kids are starting to get jobs now. They're starting at $14, $15 an hour to do like handout skates or something, lifeguarding. When I started in footings and foundations, I started at $4.50 an hour. So I know that some of you in here can relate to this, but that's a lot of hard work to do for a very little bit amount of money. I went on from concrete. I spent a lot of time in concrete, but moved on into just building homes from the ground up. A good friend of mine, a contractor, asked if I'd come work for him, and I absolutely. So we started doing custom homes. That took me to Hawaii. We built some very, very large homes on the north shore of Hawaii, on the north shore of Oahu, overlooking Sunset Beach and Sharks Cove, if you're familiar with the area. Those commutes weren't bad. It was about a half hour from where I lived to where the houses were, and it was right along the beaches. So I felt pretty privileged at that point to at least have that. Eventually, I was anybody at the AGC conference that they just had? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Raise a hand. You were nobody. Okay. I'm going to share a little story with you because this is kind of where I get my philosophy as a director, and I'll try not to take too much time doing it. When we went to Molokai, we had the company I work for had just won a contract for a little over $1 million to re-roof 21 multi-family units on the west side of Molokai. If you've ever been to Molokai, it's very, very country. It hasn't been touched much. There's one stoplight on the island and it blinks yellow. That's just to say it's super rural. There's no 7-Eleven or McDonald's or anything like that on that island. So if we needed stuff, we had to have it shipped in or bring it ourselves in advance. Well, fast forward a little bit and we're starting our project. We're starting on the very first roof. They're about 3 stories high. And one of our more experienced guys went and started hooking up the line that we would be attached to, our anchor line, basically across the ridge of the roof. We had one on each end and one in the middle, and that seemed to be all we needed. We had a half-inch cable strung across that we clip our retractors to tie in. Well, like I said, the gentleman went up, he hooked up the anchor line, he looped it through the end anchor. He had clamps on it, 4 clamps on the cable. I mean, pretty much what we would need to do to be safe right there. Once that was done, we got up onto the roof, everybody clicked or snapped in, and we started to strip the roof of those cedar shake shingles. One thing I didn't mention last time was, as we were pulling those up, Hawaii has scorpions. They're not big, but they sting like a bee when they hit you. So as we're pulling those up, every once in a while we get the pleasure of running into one of those guys, and they'd let us know they weren't happy with us. So as we're going down, when you're pulling off cedar shake roofs or shingles, usually there's a batten that goes underneath the shakes themselves, the shingles that they're attached to. And if you can get under that, you can pull the whole line up. And so we started doing that. We were prying on those, pulling them up, and it was a 12/8 pitch. So it wasn't, it would stretch your calves if you turned around and tried to walk up it. So we're getting down, there's 7 of us up there. And granted, I'm in Hawaii, and the guys that I was working with were, me and my brother were the smallest of the 7. They're big guys. All of them had played football in one way or another, gone on to college and played a little there. So good big guys. As we're going down, we get about 2/3 of the way down, and out of nowhere, the line snaps. Our ridge line comes loose, and all of us start falling toward the edge of the roof. Many of the guys were just, as they were working, they had built up kind of a pile of debris below them. So they were lucky enough to get caught by the debris. But I was in a spot where there wasn't any debris. Just perfect alleyway right down to the edge of the roof. And then we had our oldest guy, he was our foreman, on the very end of the roof, and he didn't have much below him either. Luckily, one of the the other guys that wasn't on the roof was standing on the scaffolding right below where the older gentleman was. Heard the commotion, looked up and saw Tommy is his name, coming down, kind of rolling, and timed it just right. And as he came off the roof, just ran and tackled him onto the scaffolding so he didn't go anywhere. So he fell about 4 feet maybe. But still, you're in your mid-50s. That can hurt. Myself, I happened to be facing uphill when it happened, and I hit the ground, instinctively tried to make as much surface space as I could, or get as much friction going on as I could, so I didn't slide off. But I was so close to the edge that as I was doing that, I felt my feet go off the bottom, and a whole lot of things started going through my head at that time. But the one thing that made that stuck was, what is my family going to do now? At the time, I had a wife and 4 kids, and they happened to be on the island with me because I had brought them over to just live with us there while we did the work. I had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and a what is she, 12 now, or 12 at the time? And that's the only thing that was on my mind. What's my family going to do now? While I was thinking this, I must have been screaming, because one of the bigger guys that was nearby, I just saw an arm come out of nowhere and grab my arm as I felt the edge of the shingles on my thigh, like my mid thigh. He grabbed me, and then another guy grabbed me, and they pulled me up, pulled me back in front of a debris pile. And I was thanking them like you wouldn't believe. And then I was thanking God that I had really big Polynesians to help me as my coworkers. At the time I weighed 265. That's not easy to pull somebody up off the ground with that. So my point here was, we're trying to keep people safe every day the best that we can. What had happened with the lifeline was everything in Hawaii rusts immediately. I mean, everybody's hammers, everything, any tools, anything that's metal rusts immediately. So we wanted to avoid that happening to our cable that was going across the top of the roof. So we had a coated cable. When our guy that went up to hook up the lifeline went up there, he forgot to strip the cable, or strip that coating off the cable on the area where he was clamping. So you can imagine what had happened when you got 7 NFL playing looking guys with all that force tugging against that line. It just couldn't hold, and it slipped right out. So we found out real quick that the little details matter. That sometimes you're doing the best you can to be safe, the best that you know how, not on purpose. You make a mistake, you overlook something real small, and it ends up being something that turns into something very big. That was life-changing for me at that point. I was about midway through my construction career, and ever since that point, every time I went on a job site, that was the one thing that was on my mind. Do these guys care about what I care about? Do they care if I go home in one piece to my family? And if not, see ya. I was telling everybody over there at the AGC is that we're not in the safety business. As much as we want to call ourselves safety professionals, we're kind of more than that. We're in the kind of the life-saving business, but more so the people business, the family business, the helping people's families thrive and survive and keep going. So that's a little bit about what kind of started me down the safety path. After a while, my body started breaking down. I know none of you guys can relate to that if you've ever done construction. Body started breaking down, so I started looking at some options. Decided to go back to school. Figured I had so much experience in construction, I was going to get a bachelor's degree in construction management, which I did. Came here and I graduated from Weber State with that degree from the Parsons Staker program up there. Great program, by the way. While I was there, my wife actually worked up at the University of Utah, and she did genetic cancer research. One of her coworkers was faculty over at the Rocky Mountain Center, and they got to talk. And then he said, you know, tell your husband he should probably come check this out. And it was the industrial hygiene program there. So I did, and my wife, since she worked for the U, I got half tuition already. And then there were grants provided by UOSH that would pay for 70% of the tuition. So I was looking at an opportunity to go get a master's certificate, is what I ended up with, and get paid to do it. So I did. While I was doing that, I worked for the University of Utah's EHS and got to know that place pretty well. They do a good job there. They really try hard to make it a safe place. There's so much going on there, so much. It's so hard to keep up with all of it, but my hat's off to those guys. And then when I graduated, I was looking for work, and there happened to be a position open up at UOSH. And then the reality is I really didn't know much about the differences between UOSH and OSHA, but I figured I'd apply anyway. So got the position, and I was an inspector or compliance officer. And I did that for almost 6 years. Then, do you guys remember Cameron? I don't know if you have met him. He was the director right before me. He decided to move on, and I got encouraged, or somebody encouraged me to apply, and I did. And so now I'm standing here in a suit, which I never thought I'd do because I hate suits. But trying to do this thing from another angle now. So you guys have been staring at my objectives for probably the last 15 minutes. One was the introductions. There you go. That's kind of me. That's kind of where I got my fire for safety. And let's just go ahead and advance on into the philosophies. Oh yeah, there you go. We'll also talk about a couple other things, just like statistics and all those fun things. My philosophy: employers and employees working together is the only way to have a successful program. Does anybody think that's true? I mean, that's really the only way that it happens. Go ahead. So you can imagine having that experience that I had. Safety became very important to me. And to me, safety is a way of life. If you've got children, you kind of know that when you go home from work every day, you don't turn it off. In fact, sometimes it gets heightened. So I kind of take it into all areas of my life and try to help teach my kids, you know, think through these things, think of the things that could possibly happen before you actually act. Now, UOSH, we're a regulatory agency. We're out there trying to make a difference as best we can, and uphold the law as it's written. The reality is UOSH plays a very small role in the overall scheme of safety for the employees of Utah. Yes, we'll be there if there's an accident. Yes, we'll be there if there's a complaint. Yes, we'll be there if you happen to come up on a local emphasis program list for amputation or silica or something else. But aside from that, unless we're driving by your place and we see something of imminent danger, you may not see us. So we're still that unknown boogeyman, the OSHA boogeyman that everybody hears about, that's scoping your job site from afar with binoculars or whatever the stories go. I don't know. But that's not to say because we don't want to get in and see everybody. We really do. We would like to get to all the places of employment if possible, just to make sure that we are providing safe and healthy workplaces. Policies and rules, laws, great place to start. If you've been in the safety game for very long and you've compared OSHA standards to, say, NIOSH recommendations, you'll know that OSHA standards are basically ground floor. It's the, I don't want to say it's a low bar, but it is. It's the least that you can do to be effective and safe. People who have good safety programs know that. And they do what they can to raise that bar, independently of OSHA or the citation encouragement they may get from one of us. They work on those things and they have a culture of safety. And then finally, no job's worth getting hurt for. Just ask somebody. Right before we started, I got 2 emails, and that's 2 more from the few I got earlier of folks who just had a bad day. They had lost a fingertip or got their hand crushed between something. I get those reports way too often. And it's not to say that our employers are being negligent. It's just, that's the nature of the beast. Employees get complacent about the jobs that they do. They get so used to it that they can do it kind of with their eyes closed, and they shouldn't, but you know what I mean. So it's easy for them to make a quick mistake, and then all of a sudden their entire life is going to change. If you think about it, whatever your dominant hand is, if you were to lose even just down to the first knuckle of your fingertip, how would that affect everything that you do in a day? Some of us don't think of it that way, but we kind of have to. All right, let's move on. I really love this quote by Albert Einstein. Strive not to be success, but rather to be of value. I know this is the philosophy that I take into the things that I'm doing. I could care less if I'm hailed as one of the best directors that UOSH has ever had. I could care less about that. What I want to know is, did I serve the people of Utah well? Was I responsible with the monies that they trust us with? And did I make an impact in a positive way? And how I go about doing that, I have a few core values, I guess you could call them. When I was in the Marine Corps, we had core values. There was 3 of them. Anybody in the military? Awesome. Anybody else? So in the Marine Corps, there's 3 core values, and it's honor, courage, and commitment. And they drive those home. And that's what guides the way we do things. These are the things that I've internalized those and added a few. So we got integrity. That's important to me. Like I said, I want to be responsible with the monies that the people of Utah are entrusting us with. We want to put it into the areas that we know we can make a difference and be very frugal with how that's spent. We want to be honest and upfront with everything. And so we try to just come at the things that we do with transparency. Courage. As a compliance officer, that was helpful. This is something that, typically they're going into a situation nobody wants to have, and they have to be able to navigate that situation. And our people do it very well. We rarely ever get complaints about a compliance officer. In fact, we get far more thank yous, and I didn't know UOSH was, or OSHA was so nice, I guess is the best way to put it. We know that there has been this dark cloud of OSHA and all the war stories and things. We want to change that perception. We want to be a partner, and we want to be able to be accessible and available to employers so that we can work together. It's also courage to do the right thing. Respect, and that goes without saying. We treat everybody with respect. Commitment, we're committed to the health and safety of all the people in Utah. And equity, we don't treat one business better than another, or one employer better than another, just because of their size or their what they do. So these are kind of the core values that govern the things that we do each day. And we try to make those or emulate those as best we can. Okay, can we go on? Goals. I kind of shared some with you already, but these are kind of the building blocks. We want to be useful. We don't want to be something that's a burden. We want to be consistent. So if ABC company over here gets visited, and then XYZ company over here gets visited, they're being treated the same way, with fairness, with open-mindedness. We never, and I tell all of my people that have started work with me and that have been with us for a long time, we never go into an inspection with an agenda in our head. We go in with an open mind, we get the facts, and we enforce the law. That is it. And we do it with kindness. Awareness. We need to get out there and do as much outreach as we possibly can. Let people know that we're a resource. Let them know that we can be of service to them. I think a lot of employers really hesitate to contact OSHA or UOSH because they fear what possibly could happen if they came in and saw all the stuff that they think may be wrong. Well, that may be the case, but the reality is we want to help them get better, and we can. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So if we can make more companies, more employers, more employees aware that we're out there and we're a resource, I think that strengthens the relationship. Transparency, I talked about that. We want to be up at front and open about everything. Anything you want to know about us, that what we've been doing, or how statistically we've been doing, or how the money's spent, it's all online. It's all on our website. And if it's not there, there's links to it. There's nothing that we're hiding from anybody. And we're proud of that. Jason Mon, Chris Hill, Jason's our commissioner. Chris is our deputy commissioner. And I don't know that I've ever met two people more dedicated to making this a good program. Now, I'm going to toot our horn a little bit, but we all get together as state plans. I don't know if everybody knows, you can have OSHA federal run your state OSHA program, or there's an option that the state can actually do their own plan. So Utah is a state plan. We do our own. We adhere to their standards, but we have to be that good, if not better. So we go to a lot of these conventions, and Utah is one of the better plans in the country. I want you to know that, especially in our consultation department, literally one of the top ones in the country. So if you're contemplating using them, please do. They're fantastic people with a wealth of knowledge, and they're happy to help. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about resources. As you could probably imagine, we don't get paid a lot. We're limited in the amount of people that we can actually hire. To give you an idea of what that looks like, Puerto Rico just became a state plan. They were given 52, they call them benchmarks, but they're openings for compliance officers. Utah, we got our state planhood in 1985. We were given 18. Now, at the time, that was probably okay. But since then, anybody here been here since 1985? Has anything changed? Yeah. There have been a lot of people that came in. So now we have 18 people to service a population of over 3 million. That's kind of hard to do. So without being able to get unlimited resources, we have to innovate. We have to be very careful and very strategic about the things that we do and the places our people are going. Let's go ahead and move on. So they asked me to talk about some of my imperatives, and these are basically, and I won't spend a lot of time on them. They are just what I hope to leave as a legacy. Obviously, we want to be accessible to all workers. And by that, I mean all colors, all races, languages, everything. We want to be able to service everybody that we can equally. We want to be collaborative. We want to have that reputation of with the employers of, hey, no, you don't need to fear them, call them, they'll help. We want to improve on the programs that we already have. And again, we're ranked up there pretty high, but we can do better. And then finally, and this is my personal imperative, I really want to leave it better than I found it. And I found it in really good hands. Cameron was a fantastic director. In fact, I almost quit when he left because I was worried about who was ever going to take his place. Maybe I should have been more worried than I was. Go ahead. So this is here just to illustrate what I was just talking about. As you can see, this is only from 2011 to 2021. And if you look down in the middle there, construction, in 10 years, or a little over 10 years, we've gone from 66,000 to 123,000 workers that are registered that we know of. That's doubled just in 10 years. So you can imagine how much it's grown since 1985. And then in manufacturing, we've gone, we've raised about 30,000 people. Obviously, the trend here is we're growing, and we all know that. Next slide. So that's kind of the philosophy. Those are the goals. Glad that's out of the way. I want to talk to you a little bit about something that's super exciting. And those are the statistics of Utah's OSHA. And hopefully you find some of this useful information. So 3 points of contact, right? We got it. Or maybe that's just one consistent point of contact. I joke around and I say that's a picture of me, because right now that's what it would look like. But let's get into some of the statistics. You guys might find this interesting. See how we're all doing. So up here, this is just a 3-year running total. Keep in mind, this was 2020, 2021, and then 2022. So we have the pandemic in there. So that's going to skew the numbers a little bit. But as you can see in general industry, we were pretty low because nobody was at work in the first 2020. It dipped again because maybe the adjustments that were happening with COVID. And then this year it's picked up quite a bit. Construction, it's been a steady climb. Not to say that that's bad, but it's reality. And then in public sector, we had kind of the reverse in the trends, with 2020 being more. Next slide. So in fiscal year 2022, UOSH had 666 total accidents reported. 457 of them were in general industry. 144 of them were in construction and 65 in the private sector. Bear in mind, these are the ones that got reported. And these are just the accidents. That doesn't take into consideration any of the complaints or what we call rapid responses to imminent danger. So if you have 18 people and they have to address 666 accidents plus, you can see where our strain is in manpower. So honestly, we have to be super careful and super deliberate about the resources and the way we work our people and where they go. Okay, next slide. Last year, there were a total of 18 fatalities. Those ones are directly to work, or work related directly. 10 of them were in construction. 9 of those 10 were falls. One of them was a struck by. General industry, there were 7. And private sector, there was 1. These are the ones that kind of bother me the most. Obviously, 18 is a large number of people being killed at work. We're at 9 so far for this fiscal year. So the trend is pretty steady. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to get to 18 or 20 again this year. We could go 3 months and have nothing. We could go 6 months and have nothing. But right now, that's where we're at. 9 people. Next slide. And click. So here's the accidents by year for 5 years. So back to 2018, there were a total of 486 in 2018. Then it jumped in 2019. Then it kind of settled down a little bit again. Again, that was kind of pandemic time. And then this year it picked up again. But you can see the construction, the general industry, and then the public sector ones split out there. And you can kind of see the trends as they are. Fatalities by year. Oh yeah, fun fact. I tell my girls this all the time, just because I want to razz them a bit. But fatalities, obviously, to 18 last year was a big number, but back in 2018, we almost hit that mark. Then it kind of died down again, pandemic, and we're kind of growing back up again. Now, one of the reasons, or the what we've been trying to gather and understand is why. Why is there such a big jump? Not only in deaths, but also in accidents. And what we're kind of finding out is there's a lot of people that have moved into the state. They may have had careers elsewhere, but when they got here, they weren't able to find a job in whatever they were doing, or it wasn't paying as much as it was somewhere else. So they're trying to get jobs in the highest paying areas that they can find. And a lot of times that's construction. And a lot of times the people that are doing that have 0 experience, which is okay, because you always got to learn and start somewhere. But the hard part is you don't know what you don't know. So we have people taking risks that they would normally not take if they had better education, more training, just things of that nature that will inform them. General industry, we figure, is the same way. There's manufacturing jobs that pay well, and maybe they got tired of beating up their bodies in construction, so now they're moving over into something a little less strenuous. But then those accidents still are happening. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about consultation. These guys really are amazing. There's a total of 8 of them. And they were able to produce those numbers. The thing is with consultation is they have to be invited in. So they're out doing outreach all the time, trying to get employers interested in having them come out and help them with their safety programs. General industry, obviously we did quite a few there, 117, 206 in construction. And then we have 303 compliance assistants. Now, what that basically means is our guys will go out and do trainings. They may do conferences similar to this or larger or smaller. And we also do OSHA 10 classes. We do basically 2 construction and 2 general industry 10-hour courses per year. And some of those numbers come from those courses. There's typically 20-ish people that will show up for those. But from 8 people, we were able to get those kinds of numbers, which you can see why now one of our programs, one of the best in the country. They're very effective at what they do. They've all been compliance officers prior to being consultants. And some of them have come in from other professions, other careers. This is their second career. They were in safety prior to that, retired, and decided they're going to come work for us. I don't know why. I would love to retire and just retire. But there are those people out there that love to just be busy. So we love them. But they are very quality people, and they will do a fantastic job. But one of the cool things about consultation, aside from it being volunteer, is let's say you're a manufacturing company, you've got a big plant and never really had a good safety program, if one at all, and you have consultation come out to help you get yours set up. As you're going through that process, at any time, if it starts to get too overwhelming or it's too much, they can stop at any time. They can stop the visit. They'll work on what they have so far, and then they can recontinue later or restart later. So the employer, I guess my point is the employer's in full control of those visits. Next slide. Excuse me. Our compliance officers, I said there's 18 of us. Last year did a total of 914 visits, and that's being down 3 or 4 at any given time. Safety visits obviously is the highest. Health, those ones are typically brought on by either a local emphasis program in silica or machine guarding, or a complaint filed by an employee or ex-employee or even an employee's wife that heard the bad stuff that's happening at work. So they'll go out and they'll inspect those. A lot of times those cases take a little longer. We may have to go out and do sampling for 8 hours, get the sampling results sent off to the lab, have them come back, analyze all that, and then get back with the employer. And then in the public sector, we have 39. That's roughly 2 per person, fit into between all of those other visits. So you can see we really try to do the best we can with what we've got. We're working right now to try and get a few more people. It's like pulling teeth with the feds, because they are the ones that say how many people we can have, at least in terms of how much they will fund. Utah being a state plan, we get 50% of our working revenue from the state, and we get the other 50 from grants from the government. And that's where the hangup is Utah doesn't want to give us any more money than they already do, and the feds don't either. So that's where we have to innovate. Next slide, please. All fun and games until someone puts their leg in a wood chipper. I was showing this to my kids. And my son, he's kind of a smart aleck. He's like, I wonder if they give him a discount when he buys shoes now. I was like, well, that or he has a really good collection of right foot. Untouched. Now, the reason I put this up there is we're all this guy sometimes. We get in a hurry, we make a bad decision, whatever it is, get distracted. And it doesn't need to be in a wood chipper. You know, it's just what in life we do this. But point is, it only takes a second. And one bad decision can lead to a lifetime of one shoe, I guess. Go ahead with the. So these are just the sources for my slides with the people on them, my joking slides. One more. I can just click all that information up. For those of you that are not familiar with how UOSH is set up, you have to look at it like the sides of a house. There's two sides to the house. Right wing, left wing, I don't know if you want to call it that. Good side, bad side, the force, the dark side, or whatever anybody wants to call it. We have a compliance side, and that's what we were just talking about, the 916 visits. We also have the consultation side, which we also just talked about. But what I didn't talk about was our whistleblower and our Bureau of Labor Statistics. And that's just exactly what they are. They gather the information from the employers from Utah. That's where you send your 300 logs when you get surveyed for it. They gather that information, collect it, and produce a report that's you can find on our website. It's called our CFOI or our SOI. They're all acronyms. But then we also have a whistleblower program, and that's for folks who feel like they were retaliated against for doing something that was protected. And by protected, I mean complaining about a safety issue or a concern of theirs. So if you want to see, you can always go on, look at the site. There's a lot of resources there. Last slide. That's just my contact information. If you want to get a hold of me, feel free. You can take my number down. I'm happy to answer questions or direct you to where you can get those answers. That kind of concludes my presentation portion, but I'd like to open it up to questions from anybody in the audience.
Folks, we are doing an online portion of this as well. So when you ask your question, I'll hand you the microphone, just fair warning. Questions? I know there got to be questions in here. Is UOSH more approachable now after this presentation than it was before you came here? I see some heads bobbing, and
I think they're falling asleep.
No, I don't think so. I think that's really the message that I got from this, is this organization is much more approachable. Questions? Steve.
What services would you say are the most accessible to local government, and how, what would you recommend to local government in terms of stuff that you have that I know is really cool that they could reach out and actually use and start working on, and how they could access that?
Absolutely. Just screams of consultation. We have one person who's actually specializes in our consultation in the public sector. So any of the local governments, municipalities, anybody, they can access through her. And her name is Evelyn. She's a fantastic trainer. She's been a consultant for a very long time. She'll come out and do trainings. She'll come out and do presentations. She'll come to your place of work and she'll do a full walkthrough with you and kind of help you figure out what needs to be done. She can help with programs that need to be written. All of that it's just part of her service that she does. So I think that's probably the most important one at this point, because the reality is we don't get to a lot of public sector inspections as compliance goes. We would rather everybody use consultation so that compliance doesn't have to come. We can get out in front of things if we can. That's always a better approach. But I think that's probably the best and most important resource that they could probably use at this point.
Local government, not to have penalties and, you know, to give some time and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you can talk about that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that is one of the biggest benefits of public sector is when you use consultation. Well, and even if you're not in the public sector, this rule applies. That is, they don't issue citations. They identify hazards. They list out those hazards and they assist you in abating those hazards. So there's no penalty involved. There is a requirement that you abate those hazards. But there's no monetary penalty to that. And again, you're in full control. If you just have a question about one process or one machine or one whatever, or 100, you control that visit. If you've worked with Evelyn, you know she does a really good job.
I have a question about, you know, our cities have all this equipment out in the weather all year after year after year. You provide any service where you come and would look at playground equipment or bleachers or something like that to see if they remain safe, or if you have suggestions on how to improve them?
I can take that one if you
Yeah,
want. The trust provides a great service on that. So from loss prevention, we'd be happy to come out and look at those types of things, whereas UOSH is more focused on day-to-day safety. Is that correct?
Wherever there's an employee-employer relationship, it's more to do with their day-to-day processes. If we're out on an inspection and there's a faulty piece of equipment, we'll address it. But to go out and specifically just look at machinery, we don't provide that service. We're not experts in that area.
We've actually used Jason. Jason's great to come and tell you what's wrong. Mike hasn't told us what's wrong yet.
Other questions?
Yes. No, they don't even take into account people who may have had a health issue while they were at work. These are strictly accidents that have ended in fatality. Yeah, because I know that the federal numbers, they do include those things. And so their numbers are a little bit skewed in that way.
All right, we got an online question here for you.
Okay.
Is there a way to repeat the questions being asked? The recording is not picking it up. Yes, we can do that.
Yes.
Can you mention something about working with consultation and doing all that's recommended, and if there's some kind of a period where compliance won't come or something like that? Is that correct?
So with our VPP and with our SHARP programs, if your place of business is involved with that or has become one of those places, then they won't have what we call an LEP, a local emphasis program inspection. It's a planned visit, but it's kind of the surprise kind of visit. They're exempt from those things because they've proven to us that they take the safety incredibly seriously. They have the track record to prove it. They have the programs in place. In the past, when employees or employers would use our services in consultation, if they were to have had a consultation visit with the focus being on one of the LEPs, like machine guarding, and they did a wall-to-wall walkthrough. Once the employer had completely abated all those things and we had verified it, they used to give a two-year deferral, so that if a compliance officer showed up to perform an inspection in one of those LEPs, they could show them the letter and the compliance officer would walk away. Since then, the feds have taken that away from us. So that's not available anymore. We're honoring the ones that have been done, that already have the letter, and we'll honor those until they expire. But that was one of the things that the feds decided we can't do that anymore. So we had to comply. Good question.
Out of curiosity, what's the process for selecting organizations to audit?
Okay. I guess the best way to explain it, it's a lottery. We take NAICS codes and we get we get the list of all the employers that are in that NAICS code. We throw them into a program that basically it's like a lottery, and it'll spit out 200 places. And that is our list that we go on. And we work on that list until it's done. Once that's done, we start it again and pick a NAICS code and go at it again. So really, we don't know what we're going into until we have that list. So it's very random. In my opinion, it's very fair because nobody's gets away from having that inspection if their name's on that list, or lucky if you're not.
Can you describe a little bit more about your whistleblower protection program? I'm in charge of our reporting system for how we report accidents at work, and I want to be able to explain to our employees exactly how they'll be protected from any fallback from any.
Awesome. So our whistleblower program, basically, it's we have the Whistleblower Act. It's based off of that. And like I said before, if an employee has a complaint, concern, whatever, and they bring it to your attention, maybe you do a really good job of helping them out, and it's that. But let's say somebody else didn't, and then they took it to their manager, same response, and then they filed a complaint with us. Through any of those steps, the safety person, the manager, or us, if the employer retaliates in some way, meaning maybe he gets less hours, he gets moved to a different area that's not so fun or more dangerous, or anything, or maybe even just get fired because they made that complaint, that's when a whistleblower inspection can be opened. And they will literally is a legal process where they will go in and they'll interview both sides and make a judgment. It usually takes several months. And right now we have a backlog of about 80 complaints for that right now. So we only have one whistleblower investigator. So you can see it's a lot of work for one person, but that's the process. Really, it's if they don't feel like they're getting listened to, or they feel like they're getting bullied because they did, that's when they call us. And our whistleblower is great. She's fantastic. She's got a lot of experience in legal, all kinds of legal things, but she does a great job, and she'll give them all the information they need. Tell them whether they have a case or not most of the time, and right up front. Any other questions?
Other questions?
This is great.
So you mentioned a local emphasis program, and there's been a local government, local emphasis program going on with UOSH for several years now. Do you expect that to continue into the future? You've hit a pretty good, I was actually asked for raise of hands if you've had an OSHA inspection or a UOSH inspection over the last 5 years in here. So pretty good percentage, vast majority of the people in here. Will that continue?
So the local emphasis programs will always be there. They're brought on basically by the statistics that are gathered from industrial accidents. They'll gather that information. If we see trends in a certain area, like silica, or, well, silica wasn't necessarily brought about that way, but amputations and guarding. When you see a lot of accidents happening in that area, they'll make that an emphasis program and allow us to come in and inspect for those things. A lot of the time, they're not necessarily brought or developed in state. They are handed down from federal OSHA because of the national averages in accidents and whatnot. But in Utah, we also have the option of creating a local emphasis program if we feel like there's a real need for it. So that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Any other questions? Folks, could we give Floyd a big round of applause? Thank you for his presentation.
Thank you all for being here.
Just to wind things up, thank you so much, Floyd. We appreciate that. I for one have I've worked with multiple directors of UOSH over the years, and I'm so excited to work with Floyd as he, very approachable. Why not loud enough, Steve? Sorry, very approachable. Let me talk to on this one. I highly encourage you to use the resources with UOSH. They are, and Labor Commission in total. We started this Labor Commission Luncheon series about a little over a year ago. And we'll be going forward with each of the directors of the different divisions of Labor Commission this year. We'll present their own division and what their emphasis is, just as Floyd has done today. And we encourage you to attend those and bring those that you work with as well. We think this is a great opportunity. What we've seen with UOSH is that when they come out, we're local government agencies, and it's, hey, you're government, we're government, let's make this better. That has really been what we've seen, whether it's Evelyn in consultation or the compliance folks as well. It's been a good relationship there. So I encourage you to utilize the resources there to help you protect your people and keep them safe as they're there. We want to wrap up today and have lunch. Lunch is at the back of the room. Dish up there, and feel free. I'm sorry. Great. And we wish to express our appreciation to those who have joined online. We wish you could be here to enjoy lunch with us, but we'll catch you the next time around. Thanks, folks.